It began with a parking ticket. I was midway through my morning latte when I spotted the bright yellow envelope tucked under the windshield wiper of my ancient Honda Civic. I'd never gotten a ticket before, never even so much as a warning. My heart sank as I peeled it off. Expired meter, $45. I remembered feeding the machine up to the moment I dashed into work. I checked my purse. No receipt. Confusion prickled my scalp. Seriously? I muttered, tossing the ticket on the passenger seat. I texted my roommate Scott as I backed out of the spot. Hey, did you move my car or feed the meter? I have a ticket, but I swore I put money in. No reply. I shrugged it off and headed to the office. Over the next week, small irritations accumulated like dust bunnies under a couch. My gym membership auto draft bounced. I got a text from Netflix. Your payment of $14.99 failed. Please update your card. Then an email from the cell phone carrier. Your service has been suspended due to non-payment. I stared at the screen. My credit card bill still had a healthy balance. I checked card activity, 3 unfamiliar charges, online gaming, a vacuum cleaner subscription, an air mattress rental in Boise. My jaw dropped. At home that night, I found the front door ajar. My roommate should have been at his gym after work, but I'd just seen him heading for the elevators. I flicked on the light. My laptop was gone from the coffee table. My checkbook from the kitchen counter. My favorite watch, the one I'd inherited from my grandmother, and my SSN card were missing from the nightstand drawer. I rounded the living room corner and caught sight of a duffel bag by the door, zippers open, half packed. The realization hit me. Someone had been rooting through my things. My stomach churned. I grabbed my phone. Scott, no response. My cell buzzed with an incoming call. It was the bank fraud department. Miss Alvarez, the agent said. Voice low, we've noticed unusual activity on your account. Several large cash withdrawals, new lines of credit opened, personal loans applied for. Were you aware? My head swam. No, I need that fixed. The agent promised to freeze my card and file a fraud alert, but the damage was done. I sat on the edge of the couch, heart hammering against my ribs. Scott's white sneakers lay by the door, and the corridor beyond was dark. I wondered if he'd come back, or if he'd vanished with my identity intact. I filed a police report at 3 a.m., my bloodshot eyes blazing through the precinct's fluorescent glare. The detective, a tired man with salt and pepper stubble, asked a few perfunctory questions, then tapped the report into a terminal. We'll investigate, he said. But identity theft cases can take months to resolve. You should contact the Federal Trade Commission. He handed me a pamphlet, and I clutched it like a lifeline. Back at the apartment, I texted him again. Scott, we need to talk. Call me ASAP. Hours passed. My phone remained silent. The next morning, my boss called me into her office. Jenna, I hate to do this, but your travel expenses didn't reconcile. Corporate cards overdrawn. She slid a printed statement across her desk. $1,200 at a Vegas casino, $350 at a sushi bar on Fifth Avenue, a cash advance of $500. I stared at her, blinking back tears. These aren't mine, I stammered, but she shook her head. Policy is policy. We have to suspend your card. Sort it out with your bank. I walked back to my desk in a daze. My colleagues whispered around me, rumors sparking in the inbox. I wanted to vanish. That evening, I packed a suitcase and moved into a cheap Airbnb near the office. I needed distance from the apartment, from the betrayal. I borrowed my mother's old laptop and set up Google Voice with a brand new number. I changed my passwords on everything. I placed a fraud alert on my credit report and enrolled in credit monitoring services. Yet, each measure felt like mopping water from a sinking ship. One rainy Saturday, I decided to reclaim my life. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled woman named Marlene, who'd built a reputation chasing cheaters and con artists. Over coffee in a cramped diner, I explained the chaos: stolen cards, erased bank balance, sexual harassment lawsuit in my name, eviction notice from the landlord. She listened, scribbling on a notepad. Roommate? She asked softly. Scott Jacobs, I said. 30 years old, lives with me 6 months, works a remote dev ops gig. Never seemed suspicious. Quiet, helpful, shy. I'd have never guessed. Marlene nodded. We'll start digital surveillance. We'll ping his IP address, track his known devices, cross-reference public records. Give me a week. My breath eased a fraction. Action. The next morning, I met the landlord at the building, a middle-aged man with a clipboard. I asked about the eviction notice. He frowned. You're not on record as overdue. I think your roommate tried to evict you, sent that at 3 a.m. last Tuesday. He handed me a copy of forged signature on a second lease. Then he called the locksmith. Lucky I was refurbishing the lobby and stopped him. Shock burned behind my eyes. Thank you. Should I file charges? He nodded. I'll help you. And change the locks. Each revelation fueled my resolve. I moved forward, determined to turn the tables. A week later, Marlene called, "Got something you need to see." We met at a coffee truck near my new co-working space. She slid her laptop across the counter and opened a folder. Here's Scott's pattern. He's been selling data from your SSN on the dark web. He used your name to register a shell company, Apply All LLC, and funneled money through offshore accounts. He's got money coming in soon. $27,000 payday from a bank fraud scheme. She turned the screen to me, lines of code, account numbers, Bitcoin transactions. He's collecting soon. If we move now, we can intercept his payments. My pulse thundered. How? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. We file a civil suit for damages and get a restraining order on the assets. Simultaneously, we present this evidence to the DA's office. We freeze those offshore accounts through international legal channels. She closed the file. By the end of the month, he'll be penniless and behind bars. I nodded, adrenaline surging. Let's do it. Back at my desk that afternoon, I drafted the lawsuit complaint, identity theft, fraud, conversion. I attached Marlene's investigation report. I filed with the county court clerk. My first step in the legal labyrinth. That evening, I delivered the DA packet in person. Printed bank statements, transaction logs, the eviction notice, copies of forged corporate documents. The assistant DA, a keen-eyed prosecutor, accepted it with a serious nod. We'll get a search warrant and bank freeze orders. Who's representing you in civil court? I swallowed, still interviewing. I want to keep my costs down, but I know I need a specialist. The assistant DA scribbled a note. I'll connect you with our cyber fraud unit. Expect a call Monday. I left the precinct feeling lighter than air. For the first time in 2 months, I smelled hope instead of despair. That weekend, I stood outside the apartment building as movers swapped the front door lock. I peered at the polished brass knob, the keyhole replaced with an electronic pad. I typed the new code with satisfaction. My old key no longer worked. The same code would apply to Scott's side door. He'd be locked out. That night, I slept in the apartment, not the Airbnb, feeling the old walls settle around me. I flipped through the photo album on my tablet. Scott's profile pictures on Facebook, so innocent, juxtaposed with shell companies and Bitcoin cash-outs. I felt a swirl of pity and rage, how someone could smile in selfies while dismantling another person's life. At dawn, I walked to the bank to check my accounts. My balance was back to zero. Scratch that, back to a semblance of normal. The forensic accountant had recaptured 60% of the drained funds. The rest remained tethered to the seizure process. My refund check was in the mail. I went to my office, logged in, and saw no alerts, no fraudulent charges. Welcome back, Jessica. The screen felt like it said. I wanted to tell the world, my coworkers, family, the scam victim support group I'd joined, about my victory. But Marlene advised patience. Let the civil suit and criminal case do their work. His lawyers will scramble. He'll plead. We'll get compensation and a guilty plea. Then you can make your statement. On the Monday morning when I opened my email, there was a notice from the court clerk, case number 2024, CV 5589. Defendant Scott Jacobs has defaulted. Relief requested to freeze and forfeit all assets accruing to Apply All LLC, as per judgment in favor of plaintiff Jessica Alvarez. My breath caught default judgment. He hadn't responded to the complaint. I forwarded the message to my civil attorney, an earnest young lawyer who'd taken the case pro bono, and he emailed back, "We'll schedule a hearing for asset turnover. Then I'll move to levy his personal property. You'll have your restitution." But beyond money, there was something more intoxicating: justice. I remembered the police detective's bored shrug, my boss's dismissal, the eviction threat, the invasive calls. Here in black and white was my triumph. That Friday, I returned home early to find a voicemail from Marlene. The DA's office file has been updated. The search warrant executed this morning found Scott's laptop, flash drives, and 2 binders of forged checks. He's been arrested on 17 felony counts, Identity theft, fraud, forgery, conspiracy. Bail's $1 million. He won't see the light of day for a while. I stared at my phone, stunned. Relief crashed through me like a wave. I walked into the kitchen and popped a bottle of Prosecco, the bubbly fizz echoing my heartbeat. I poured a glass and flitted to the window overlooking the parking lot where months ago I'd found that ticket. I raised my glass to the empty spot outside. Once my ticket out, now my ticket back to life. I sat down on the couch, the city lights flickering through the window. I had my name back, my credit fixed, my peace of mind. I thought of Scott, behind bars, forced to pay for the life he'd tried to take from me, and I felt whole again. Because sometimes the only way to reclaim your identity is to take back everything. One stolen dollar, one eviction notice, one false real estate lease, until the person who stole it cannot walk upright in the world they once stole from you. And that was only the beginning. When the cell door slammed behind Scott for the 4th time, I realized how deeply his betrayal had cut, but also how thoroughly I'd stitched my life back together. 6 months had passed since I moved into that Airbnb, since I'd first discovered the vanished laptop and the forged bank statements. In those months, I'd leapt through hoops, police stations, lawyers' offices, credit unions, until Scott's name was synonymous with felon and my own was scrubbed clean. But the best part wasn't the legal victories, or the default judgment, or even his arrest. The best part was reclaiming not just my credit score or my identity, but my confidence. And now, as I sat in the courtroom gallery awaiting Scott's sentencing hearing, I could almost taste the justice in the air. The sentencing was scheduled for a crisp Thursday morning in early November. I arrived at the county courthouse just after 8 a.m., the sky pink with sunrise. A friend from work, Marisol, squeezed my hand as we took our seats in the gallery. She'd been my rock through this ordeal, proofreader of my victim impact statement, chauffeur to the DA's office, and my co-conspirator in late-night pep talks. "Ready?" she whispered. I nodded, smoothing my navy blazer. More than I've ever been. The courtroom filled a cluster of reporters in the front row, Scott's newly hired attorney pacing along the rail, a handful of curious neighbors, and the clerk who recognized me from filing my civil complaint. At the defense table, Scott sat shackled, but oddly calm, as if he'd resigned himself to defeat. His once bright eyes were now dull, strained, beard untrimmed, hair lank, clothes ill-fitting. He looked small. When the judge took the bench, everyone rose. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, reviewed the pre-sentence report. Scott's attorney made a brief pleading argument for leniency. Scott's lack of criminal history, his stress episode, his mother's heart condition. Then the DA rose, files in hand. "Your Honor," she began, voice measured but firm, "the defendant committed identity theft and fraud on an industrial scale. He drained Miss Alvarez's accounts, stole her personal documents, disrupted her livelihood, and nearly destroyed her ability to work and provide for herself. The financial and emotional harm was extensive." She laid a thick binder, evidence logs, transaction records, a statement from my employer sacking me from corporate credit card privileges on the lectern. The room rustled as the judge leafed through it. Finally, she looked up at Scott. "Mr. Jacobs, your crimes were calculated and premeditated. You exploited someone you called a friend. I see no mitigating factors that outweigh the gravity of your actions." She paused. "I hereby sentence you to 5 years in state prison, to be followed by 3 years supervised release. Restitution of $45,000. Your criminal proceeds will be paid in monthly installments, garnished from wages and funds seized in the civil judgment." I felt a quiet exhale, tears pricking my eyes. Marisol reached over and squeezed my hand. Scott stared at the bench, head bowed. As the clerk pronounced "Court is adjourned," murmurs swept through the gallery. I waited until the judge and the court staff filed out, then approached the front. Scott's attorney lingered, flipping through papers. "Miss Alvarez," he said quietly, "the civil judgment is still in force. Mr. Jacobs will continue to owe every cent." I nodded. "Thank you. That's justice." I turned and before I left the rail, I glanced at Scott. He looked up, eyes meeting mine. No hatred, no anger, just regret. I gave him a small nod. "Take care of yourself," I mouthed. He sank back into his chair. My step out of the courtroom felt light, as if each footfall carried the weight of months off my shoulders. That afternoon, I met Marisol and my parents at an upscale cafe downtown, a celebration meeting. Fresh croissants, avocado toast, strong drip coffee. We toasted with cold sparkling water, all of us grinning. "To Jessica," said my mother, her eyes moist. for showing remarkable strength and reclaiming what was yours. I raised my glass to moving forward. After brunch, I went to the law office to sign the final papers sealing the civil suit. My attorney Miguel handed me a check for the residual proceeds recovered from Scott's assets, the last installment of my restitution. I cradled the sizable check like a trophy. "Congratulations," Miguel said, offering a handshake. "You handled this perfectly." I slipped the check into my purse, nodding. "Now, I think it's time to invest in a new laptop." That evening, I returned to my apartment. Scott's belongings had been cleared out weeks ago, unpacking boxes of textbooks and art supplies, filling the empty shelves. I slid a new MacBook Pro onto the desk and plugged it in. I hit the power button, the Apple logo glowed, and I could almost hear it whisper, "Restart." I opened the lid and paused at the screen. No fraud alerts, no boarding notifications. Just a fresh desktop wallpaper of a sunrise over Yosemite that I'd downloaded on a whim 2 years ago and finally put up. I savored a moment of calm triumph. Then I closed the computer and grabbed a legal pad, flipping to a blank page. I'd taken this journey from betrayal to victory, but now I wanted to write something new for myself, something to shout from the rooftops. Or at least my blog, How I Took Back My Life After Identity Theft. I jotted the title and smiled. Over the following weeks, my life reassembled itself in even brighter colors. I reactivated my corporate credit card, and my boss at work, once skeptical, now impressed, handed me the reins of a new project, launching an identity theft awareness campaign for our clients. My own story would headline the kickoff presentation. In evening hours, I began drafting a long-form article for a national business magazine. I interviewed the DA, the PI, the cybersecurity analysts who infiltrated the stolen accounts, and even reconnected with Scott's mother, who tearfully apologized. Each perspective revealed layers of brokenness behind the crime and underscored how a single friend could almost steal another person's entire existence. The article, titled "When the Killers You Know Steals Your Identity," went live with a mid-December byline that gleamed on the magazine's website by Jessica Alvarez. The comments poured in emails of solidarity from readers who'd faced similar betrayals, messages of gratitude from identity theft victims, even a tweet from the cybersecurity firm Krebs on Security linking to my story. One morning, I opened my inbox to find an invitation. "Please join us as a guest expert on the National Security Podcast to talk about identity theft prevention." I nearly spilled my coffee. Me, the girl who once cried in her bathroom mirror, now a go-to authority. Christmas week arrived with glittering lights and the promise of rest. I'd hosted my parents and Marisol for gift wrapping and eggnog. My mother grinned as she tucked a hand-knit scarf around my neck. "You look like the person you used to be," she said. I touched the scarf. "Better," I whispered. That night, around the tree, I unwrapped one final gift for my sister Lily, a photo collage of happier times, me and Scott at a college party, birthdays with cake in my hair, sunsets shared at the beach. It was bittersweet. I turned the gift to show everyone the empty frame where one photo should have been, my gray Civic parked outside the precinct, ticket on the wiper. We all laughed through tears. "Here's to new memories," Lily toasted, clinking her mug. As New Year's Eve dawned, I found myself at an annual media industry gala downtown. Glittering chandeliers, tuxedos, the hum of champagne flutes. I was a panelist protecting your digital self in 2025. I took the stage alongside a senator, a tech CEO, and an FBI agent. When it was my turn, I spoke from the heart. Identity theft isn't just financial, it's personal. It's the loss of trust by someone you thought you knew. But it doesn't have to define you. With vigilance, legal recourse, and community support, you can reclaim your life. I know, because I did. And I stand before you as proof you're more powerful than the thieves who try to diminish you. The audience gave me a standing ovation. I stepped down, eyes stinging with happy tears, and a wave of colleagues mobbed me for selfies. One reporter whispered, "You're the real hero of the evening." I laughed, thinking of how small I once felt. As midnight approached, I stood on the terrace overlooking the city's fireworks. My phone buzzed, a text from Marlene, the PI. "I'm retiring next month. Thanks for giving me the case of a lifetime." I typed back, "Thank you for everything. Here's to new beginnings." I pocketed my phone and joined the crowd counting down to midnight. When the clock struck 12 and explosions bloomed across the sky, I closed my eyes and leaned into the moment, grateful for second chances, for justice that wasn't just served but prevailed, for a life reclaimed. In 2025, I made a vow to help others navigate the darkness of identity theft, to champion those whose names were stolen, and to remind every person out there, victim or victor, that true identity can never be taken if you refuse to let go of who you are. Because sometimes the only way to fight a thief is to show up, stand tall, and make them pay for every moment of your stolen life. And the payoff, freedom, dignity, and a fierce new sense of self, is worth every battle.